I can't describe how devastating the video coming in all weekend long was. A condominium collapsing in the middle of the night late last week. Seemingly out of the blue, a relatively young building splitting in half and crashing to the ground. 12 floors pancaked on top of one another. When the sun came up, the wreckage looked like a bomb had hit it. Now, I was at the World Trade Center 2 days after it was terrorized. This in Florida looked eerily similar. It also resembled the 1994 bombing of the Oklahoma Alfred Murrah Federal Building. In other words, no one had any idea what happened to 8777 Collins Avenue in Florida. We spent the weekend glued to the reports, just waiting, hoping for a sign someone miraculously might be found, but not yet. The pile of rubble, similar to the World Trade Center wreckage, broke out in several fires. More reason to lose hope for survivors. After all, the structure is unstable. There's a whole portion of that building remaining that could fall at any moment, like 7 World Trade Center did, which fell hours after Tower 1 and Tower 2 dropped. Now back to Florida. In conditions like these, the whole area is extremely unstable, volatile, and potentially deadly to anyone near it. Yet, within hours of the collapse, with the structure as dangerous as I just described, we saw something amazing. We saw dozens of first responders, hundreds of first responders underneath this mammoth pile of burning and unstable rubble, drilling and digging in a heroic attempt to find survivors. You know, it struck me, these men, women, and dogs were risking their life and limb to save others, strangers, citizens, because that's what they signed up for. These men and women have families of their own, husbands, wives, kids, who love them and want them to come home at night too. But they put that all aside and did their jobs. Amazing. Heroes. Our first responders are heroes. They run towards danger while most of us run away from it. All first responders are heroes. Fire, search and rescue, special task forces, cops, and military. Heroes. All of them. Full stop. But there's a growing trend from our liberal friends on the left to demonize these men and women. What happened next was inevitable. The NYPD experienced mass exoduses of police officers with 75% spike in departures and retirements. And this trend isn't unique to New York City. Chicago, Seattle, and Minneapolis police departments have all reported unheard of rates of retirements and departures compared to a year ago. And in the aftermath of last summer's violent crime wave, Democrats are calling for more police departments to be defunded. That puts pressure on all first responders in any community. Remember, how many Miami-Dade cops do you think are at the 8777 Collins right now? Hundreds, helping fire and rescue and risking their own safety. Cops also run towards danger every day too, and yet they're demonized by the liberal left. Listen to Minnesota Democrat Ilhan Omar.
I will never stop saying, not only do we need to disinvest in police, but we need to completely dismantle the Minneapolis Police Department.
And look what Michigan squad member tweeted earlier this year. Rashida Tlaib said, policing in our country is inherently and intentionally racist. No more policing, incarceration, and militarization. It can't be reformed. Now that is astonishingly foolish. Defund our first responders? And yet, as dumb as that sounded, liberal Democrat mayors listened to these fools and cut back on police budgets. Again, cops help out all first responders. So actually, these mayors were cutting fire and rescue as well as cops' access to resources. So what did these liberal Democrats think would happen? Nothing? Well, they were wrong. Something did happen. Violent crime is spiking across the nation's Democrat-run cities. Look at the murder rate spikes in Omar's Minnesota. Check it out. And in New York City, they pulled $1 billion from law enforcement this year. $1 billion. And guess what happened here? The same exact thing, a massive spike in violent crime. Up a massive 52% for murder and over 100% for shootings. But if you listen to squad leader Ocasio-Cortez, crime isn't really spiking. It's me, a conservative's fault. Apparently, Ms. Ocasio-Cortez thinks I'm playing with the numbers Well, no, ma'am, I'm not being fuzzy with the math. Violent crime is skyrocketing in your city, and you are largely to blame. Simply stated, there is a common denominator here, folks. Homicides are up, with spikes in major cities as much as 800%. Mass shootings are up. Assaults are up. That's the numerator. The denominator? Democrats. It's a common denominator. That's not fuzzy math. That's a direct correlation. Fact. By the way, Ms. Ocasio-Cortez, I know you're numerically challenged. Please hit me up for a math refresher. If you haven't heard, I'll be here at Newsmax for the foreseeable future. So crime is spiking in America, and Democrats are to blame, especially radical Democrats like the Squad. They're especially responsible. Now, finally, let's turn to the military, a kind of first responders for America. Our military fights for our liberties and freedom. The American flag and the national anthem are symbols of their fight, and in tens of thousands of cases, their ultimate sacrifice. So when I saw this weekend, it riled me up, and it should rile you up too. A U.S. Olympian, Gwen Berry, turning away from the flag as the national anthem was playing instead of being patriotic. Berry draped herself in a black t-shirt that read, "Activist Athlete." And Berry said the national anthem doesn't represent her. Well, that's disgusting. Gwen Berry should be stripped of her bronze medal and be tossed off the Olympic team. I think I speak for millions of patriotic Americans here. I don't want her representing America in Tokyo next month or ever. And by the way, corporate America, in a sheepish ploy to appear woke, if you embrace this athlete, I suggest we, the patriotic 50% of America, boycott your products. As the weekend ended last night, I was struck by the fact that the left has divided America. On one hand, conservatives and patriotic Americans respect our first responders, our flag, our anthem, and our way of life. Meanwhile, liberal Democrats aggressively are trying to change this great country, defunding first responders, and create some woke version of the great and powerful global leader that America is. Gwen Berry and too many like her are pulling self-serving stunts to draw attention to some virtue signal blinking in their selfish little minds is just one example. Now, they say a picture speaks 1,000 words. I would agree.
You just watched Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news channel, now in more than 70 million homes. You can get Newsmax TV on your cable system or check your cable guide. And if your system doesn't carry Newsmax, call them, tell them you want Newsmax TV, because we're real news for real people.